Hey, it's me, James. Happy Monday to you all. I'm filming this video reading on Monday, May the 26th, 2025. It is Memorial Day here in the United States, and so I have a little bit of time before I head into work, so I thought this was the right and perfect time to conduct this reading. So you see two decks on the table. I have been working with two decks for the last few Oracle Outlook video readings, if you're no stranger. And at this point, let me just say that if this is your first time here, welcome to my channel. And if you're a returning viewer and visitor, I'd like to say welcome back. So like I was about to say, we have been doing what's been called the double-decker readings. And so I've been adding a little bit of variation to this. This was actually the suggestion of a viewer named Ismail. So Ismail, I'm giving you another shout out, my friend. And over the course of these double-decker readings, I have been tweaking them, modifying them, playing with different decks and variations. And this week is going to be no exception. So the two decks on the table, on the left is the tarot deck that I've made recently, and it is the Mitchell AI Tarot. This is my second tarot deck, and it is a collaboration with AI. And on the right is my take on the very popular Gypsy Witch fortune-telling playing cards. My variation is called the Gypsy Witch Oracle. And so that is the deck on the right. So the way I have it planned, I have been doing lines of 5. So when I first started doing the double deckers, I did each line from, was consist of 5 cards from each deck, and then I've been doing a 3x3. And today I'm going to be doing what I'm going to call the 3x5. So it's going to look like this. We're going to use 3 cards from tarot as the top line, and then 5 cards from the Gypsy Witch Oracle as the bottom line. So let's go ahead and get the shuffling underway. I'm going to start with the tarot deck. And basically when I do these general readings, I'm simply asking the cards to provide any information, any insight, guidance, or wisdom that's going to be most helpful and beneficial as we move through the course of the upcoming week. I'm going to go ahead and cut the deck. Fanning the cards out now, I'm looking for 3 cards that is going to serve as the top line. So these are the 3 cards. I'm going to take the remainder out. I'm going to put them to one side. Now I'm going to take the Gypsy Witch Oracle and do the same. I'm going to shuffle with the same intention. Alright. Do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and cut the deck. Fan the cards out. And now I'm going to select 5 from this set. And there's my 5 there. Now we're going to lay out the cards. in the order that they were selected. All right. Now, in the past, I was reading these in columns. I was reading them vertically, but for this week, I'm going to read the entire top line and then the entire bottom line. Okay, so the way I was looking at the tarot line would be maybe, especially if majors show up, then this would be the themes, the overall themes, or the important issues or events that could be unfolding in the course of the week. And then if it's minor cards, then they would be things that maybe we could take action on, because they would represent more of the mundane aspects of life. So let's take a look. First card is the Ace of Fire. So aces in tarot represent a new stage or the beginning of a new phase or chapter in one's life. And then the suit of fire, in my deck, the minors are the elements. And so this would be the Ace of Wands in the more traditional tarot packs like the RWS, it's Rider-Waite-Smith. So here we have a source of inspiration, a source of passion. This may be people who are beginning a new phase or stage with work or enterprise. So this could be related to job and employment or business if you are self-employed. But moving through life, this could be about receiving a burst of inspiration. This is a card about creative bursts of inspiration, or some sort of creative endeavor and taking the first step in that. But just going through life, it could be like you are getting a boost of energy. So it's something having to do with your energy level or levels. And also too, this card can turn up to suggest a passion of some sort is being rekindled, or a passion is being ignited. So that's what I would say with the Ace of Fire. And now, keeping it relative for me, there is a reason why I'm using this particular deck. So let me just talk about it now, because for me, this is what I'm talking about with the Ace of Fire in terms of a passion being rekindled. I don't know what sparked it, but I have gotten a renewed interest, a renewed sense of passion regarding the system called Lenormand. And for me, the Gypsy Witch cards are close to that. A lot of the cards in the Gypsy Witch system, if you're familiar, are Lenormand cards. And then the other, I want to say 14 or so cards are derived from another system called the Old Whitman fortune telling cards. So the Gypsy Witch cards are a mashup between the two systems. And the reason why I'm using this particular deck at this point in time is because Ace of Fire, I made my very first Lenormand deck, and so it is in the process of being printed. And so I am very excited about that, and so I wanted to kind of work with a Lenormand deck. But now the thing is, on my channel, I have made the decision to highlight or specialize my own personal decks. And so I didn't have a Lenormand deck yet of my own making, so that is why I'm using the Gypsy Witch cards this week, full disclosure. So, but I'm sharing that because it is linked to Ace of Fire for me personally. So that's what I mean by like a renewed sense of interest or rekindled passion, that kind of thing. So that is Ace of Fire. Let's move on. The next card in the line, oh my goodness, look at this. So we have a pattern here. We have another ace. So again, this week could be the jumping off point for new phases, new stages, new chapters, the potential for the future. Those are all themes regarding with aces, right? It could also be a need to maybe hone in on what makes you unique, what makes you different, what makes you stand out. because the ace is the number one, and the number one relates to the individual, right? So this could be a week of either initiation. As a magical practitioner, that word just came to my mind. So this could be a week of initiation, or that you are becoming more aware of your individuality. I'm thinking of the word individuation. That's the psych background in me coming out, right? And so that's a perfect segue to talk about the Ace of Air, which would be the Ace of Swords, right? Air in my system and swords in the more traditional tarot packs can be associated with the mind, right? So this could be a new way of thinking, a change in mindset. This card in particular can mean that we are about to receive the answer or solution to a problem or a challenge we've been experiencing, because the suit of air or swords can also represent problems, challenges, blocks, and obstacles. Yes? So this could be about gaining mental clarity. Yeah? It could also be one's crowning achievement, because in the more traditional packs, at the top of the sword there is a crown, right? So it's a pun for two things, crowning achievement or the crown chakra, because it is at the top of one's head, right? So this could be like getting some kind of download, aha, epiphany, things like that, if you're chakra minded. But it could also be with the background being the sky. It could be about keeping an open mind, right? Now, there's something interesting going on here, because for me, the Ace of Air can also be about a job or career change, right? So there's something going on with either one's work or career that is going to be kicking into high drive this week, especially if there is some sort of change related to that, right? And if you note, look at the change in the atmosphere, right? So it could even be that somebody's moving to a different geographic location because of the change in climate within the cards. Right. And then the last thing I will add, based on the symbolism of the wand here and the sword here, there's a lot of masculine energy, right? Because each one of these would be considered a phallic symbol. So there's a lot of masculine energy here. And so we are all masculine and feminine, regardless of our gender. So it could just be what you associate with masculine energy. So I'm thinking here like drive, ambition, determination, willpower, those kinds of things. So that's what I would say here. So we have the potential for something new. And for some people, I'm going to liken this to something either job or career related. Okay, and the last card. And here we have the major. Okay, so here we have the Wheel of Fortune. And the first thing that I will offer is that this card is numbered 10. It's the 10th major in the deck. And then the 10, interestingly enough, reduces to 1 if you add the 1 and the 0 together. Right, so there's that taking that sense of initiation or individuation to the next level, right? That would be the 1, and then the 0 would be the next level. Right, and so with that, the Wheel of Fortune can turn up to suggest a period of time where you are experiencing expansion, evolution, opportunity. It can represent a major turning point in one's life. Now, with that, this card is also about, taking chances, right? The opportunity may come as an opportunity to take a chance on yourself. Because I'm hearing the ABBA song in my head, Take a Chance on Me, yeah? So there may be some level of chance, and then you have to ask yourself the honest question, how risk averse are you? If there's a risk involved in it, would you be willing to take the risk? Would you be willing to play the odds with the roulette wheel implying gambling, right? Would you be willing to play the odds? Now, this card can also be about cycles and patterns because the roulette wheel spins, right? And so it could suggest that there may be a cycle or a pattern that's coming back around into your life for you to recognize it and move beyond it. This card would be like saying, like, stop the ride, I want to get off, right? But that's only because you have become aware, and that may be a nod to the Ace of Air about the clarity, right, to the answer or solution. Or, I'm sorry, the clarity, which would be the answer or solution to a problem or challenge. That's what I meant to say, right? But again, the Wheel of Fortune is a great card. It can suggest evolution, expansion, growth, opportunity. It may require taking some kind of chance or taking chances. But it's also, again, about cycles and patterns and breaking certain cycles and interrupting certain patterns, right? But that only comes with awareness. And that would be a nod to the, I'm going to hold the card up again because of the image, the chandelier above the wheel, right? That would be a light source. So that's providing some sort of illumination, right? But this is a great card. So now I will say, for me, if I come back here and I mirror the cards, and talking about my renewed interest in Lenormand, the Wheel of Fortune can also represent fortune tellers. Yeah? So Lenormand is a fortune telling device. Yes? So that's very interesting for me to see here. But this is a very interesting row of cards, if I say so myself. Okay, so now that's going to bring us to this row. And so we have 5 cards here. I'm going to read this as my traditional line of 5, but I'm going to read it left to right. So opening the line up here, we have the Ring card. So Ring is a card of commitment, right? So for those people who may be making shifts or changes within job, employment, or career, then this card would be suggesting the possibility of an agreement, a contract, perhaps even a partnership. Now, if we're talking about maybe more self-employed people, then this card can suggest perhaps a merger or a union, because the ring can represent unions and mergers. So it asks the question, like, what are you committing yourself to? Or what are you committed to? What are you engaging in? Or what do you find at this phase in your life engaging, right? If we go back to Ace of Fire, right, remember that was a card about passion, inspiration, and this would make sense in alignment with those questions. You know, because you have to have the inspiration before the commitment or the engagement, yeah? Now, the ring is also a circular object. I'm going to put it, and that is a nice segue back to the Wheel of Fortune, because this card can also represent cycles and patterns. Because if you go with the idea that the ring is circular, right, so it can represent something cyclical, right? So it could just be a matter of paying attention to certain patterns that show up in your life, or it may be that a particular cycle or a pattern is getting your attention this week and you're willing to do some work around that to move through it. But that is ring. Next card. Here we have bear. Okay, so here we have a card that can represent authority. The bear can represent bosses, managers, supervisors, leaders, expertise, or being an expert. So here we have maybe the commitment or the promise for a manager, or that a commitment or engagement is powerful, strong. Those are all words that are associated with bear. So here we have a strong commitment, a powerful commitment, Now the bear can also represent mothers, if you go with the idea that the bear is a symbol for a mama bear, right? Then here we have maybe something about a commitment with a female authority figure. So that could be a mother, mother-in-law, stepmother, something of that nature. But this card can also be about resources. So it could be, if we're talking about the self, right? So this could be the commitment maybe one is making to oneself about being resourceful. Right? If the ring is about relationships with other people and you're not in that type of relationship and you're in a relationship with yourself, so to speak, then this could be about maybe being committed to your own sense of authority, your own sense of power. There may be a relationship dynamic where that's going to come to the fore, about your own sense of power, right? And you're noticing maybe when you are fully embodying your power and when you maybe are giving it away, maybe to a situation, condition, relationship, dynamic. But there is that, what I'm seeing here. So this could be the promise for a boss, supervisor, leader, manager, right? And that would make sense with the cards talking about business and career, right? And then the Wheel of Fortune added to that would be evolution, right? Expansion. And one way that we can expand on the job is maybe to move up the ladder, right? And it may be something that's still in the works. Remember now, the aces are about something that's being initiated, right? Or the potential for the future. And maybe there's a promise for somebody to become a manager, supervisor, leader, that kind of thing. Right? But maybe if things are shifting for somebody, making the promise, and maybe, like I said before, the promise to oneself about being strong as you move through your experience. So that's bear. Card in the middle, when I read this, this would be the heart of the matter or the issue. Oh my gosh, here we have the tower. And so the tower can represent, first and foremost, it can represent a company, a corporation, a firm. Yeah? So again, this nod about somebody potentially moving up the ladder, right? So there may be an agreement, a promise, or some sort of contract for a person, perhaps in an authority position or moving up into authority position, because this would represent elevation of status. Now it can also represent, and this is a little bit of a shift here with tower, this can represent things like rules, regulations, policies, things that are of an official nature. This could be somebody who's holding office, right? So if this is not a person in a position of authority within a company, corporation, or firm, then this could be somebody who holds office. And maybe there's a promise or an agreement regarding a particular policy, rule, regulation. And it could be, if I bring the tarot cards back into it, that it could be an issue that has people all fired up, right? This card could be about getting fired up. And then with that fire, the suit of fire can represent action. So it could be taking action on something that you are heated about, something that you are on fire about, that kind of thing. So that's a shift from maybe the more job, business type aspect of life, and maybe more for people who are political minded or activists even. You know, so what's underlying your activism this week could be something on a political front or within the political landscape, but it has to center on a particular rule, regulation, policy, that kind of thing. The other thing about the tower, where I talked about the idea of the individual and individuation, the tower can turn up to suggest isolation, being alone, the idea of like, being in your ivory tower, so to speak, right? So this could be about finding time to be alone. Now, if we're talking about job, business, things like that, I talked about a company, corporation, firm. This card can also turn up to suggest freelance work. And so that may be another nod to the ring, right? If you're working freelance, there may be a contractual agreement about freelance work. And then that would be because you have some area of expertise. You may not be with the company, corporation, or firm full time, but there is some sort of freelance work, like you're being hired by the company as a specialist, right? And then bear being a card of resources, there may be some sort of mutual agreement being made about the resources, meaning like what you will be compensated for your specialty, your specialization. And then the interesting thing about that, if it's freelance work, the aces might suggest, based on the atmosphere in the cards, different seasons. Like for me, the Ace of Fire is spring, and then the Ace of Air would be fall. So it would be maybe something for the short term, not something long term. Okay. I'm taking a pause to see if there's anything else I wanted to say about the Tower. I think I'm good, but I may come back if something comes to mind. But again, this card is about company, corporation, firm, something of an official nature or capacity. It may involve rules, regulations, policies, and being on one's own for time alone. Yeah, that's it. That was the other thought. I said being on one's own. So this could be, again, a need for stepping into one's power, standing in your own sense of individuality, independence, that kind of thing. That's what I wanted to say. Okay, so that is the Tower. Next card. Here we have the Eye card, okay? So this is about vision, focus. What do you have your sights set on, right? This is about the power of observation. I love this card, right? So it says everything begins with a sense of vision. So what do you envision for the future? If we go left to right, this is moving more towards the future and the outcome. Yeah, this would be how the story starts, and then as we're moving down the line, this is more future-oriented cards, right? So this could be about what do you have in terms of a vision for the future. Right? But I talked about cycles and patterns and those kinds of things. This is about paying attention. It reminds me of the expression, like once you see it, you can't unsee it. So what are you willing to see this week? This card is about, keeping your eyes wide open. Now, if we go maybe more spiritually minded, I talked about the chakra with the Ace of Air, right? I talked about the crown chakra. Then this would be the idea about, second sight. So that would be like clairvoyance, right? If we made it more spiritual. So it could be somebody who's working with their upper chakras, their crown, and their third eye chakras. And that would be a form of evolution, expansion, growth, yeah? The 10, remember, is the 1 amped up to the next level. But for me, just keeping it a little more grounded, right? This would be the ground up, right? Ground level. Keeping it grounded, then this would be about observing things, monitoring things, keeping your eye on things. If you want to achieve something, crowning achievement, keeping your eye on the prize, those kinds of things. But again, it's about the adage, like, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Okay, and then the last card, you have, ooh, another great card. So here we have the Star card, right? So the Star is just like the Ace of Fire. I love this being the last card because it comes right back to the very first card. The Star is a card of inspiration, right? So again, as we wrap up, it's inviting you to consider again, just like the Ace of Fire, what inspires you at this stage in your life? It's about hope. This card is about wish fulfillment. But it's not enough to just about having the wish. It's about what actions are you willing to take to have that wish fulfilled or realized. Now, it's very interesting. I talked about second sight, clairvoyance here, and I talked about the chakra, the crown chakra here, because this card can also be about the metaphysical or the esoteric. And so somebody could be dabbling in that. The Star actually is a nod to astrology and maybe things that are connected to astrology. Right now, before getting on camera, I was looking at a system called Human Design. So if you're familiar with that, it is a combination of astrology and the chakra system and Kabbalah. It's very interesting. Of course, I'm biased because I really resonate with it. But it could be, getting involved or dabbling in systems that are more esoteric based. And that would be one of them. In an effort to understand yourself better. Yeah, if we bring it back to these, right? It's about self-understanding, self-awareness. Yeah. And, the idea here is that the more you understand yourself, the more self-aware you become, the easier it becomes for you to move through the world because you have changed your outlook and perspective, right? And you see things differently than you did before you had the awareness, right? One of the things I love about human design is that once I embraced my design. And if you're curious, if you know about HD and you're curious, I am a manifesting generator. I'm actually a 5-2. That's my profile. A 5-2 manifesting generator, yeah? And so once I embraced that, and it was really easy for me, like, excuse me, human design was one of those things that I just instantly resonated with when I discovered it. Because it just resonated with me that much. I mean, I could just see so much of myself in my type, so to speak, right? Excuse me, I need to clear my throat. But the idea for me, like, once I embraced that, and I realized that everybody's a different type, and of course you know that in different ways, right? It doesn't take human design for maybe you to understand this point. But, once I embraced, being a 5-2 manifesting generator, and I just operated from that, but it made me realize everybody's a different type, yeah? We're not all the same, right? And so my not self theme is frustration. So I used to get frustrated with the idea, like, why isn't everybody else like me? Why can't everybody do what I do? And it's because not everybody is a manifesting generator, or especially a 5-2 manifesting generator, yeah? So I'm going on and on to make the point is that once you, no matter how you do it, no matter how it comes to you, no matter the process, the modality, the technique, is that once you are fully aware of that, who you are as an individual, you change your outlook and perspective on the world and you see things a different way, right? So that's the point I was really trying to make. I made a roundabout way to get there, but that was the point, right? So as the last card, Star is about inspiration, guidance, clarity. It's about trusting your inner GPS, right? Your inner navigation system, right? But that's what I would say too. I love how this card reflects this card about inspiration. So again, the chief question this week to consider is what inspires you, and would you be willing to take action on that inspiration? And on that note, we will go ahead and wrap up this week's Oracle Outlook video reading. If you made it to this point in the video, I want to thank you for giving me the gift of your time. I never take that lightly. So, thank you again. For Ismail, I hope that you found this 3x5 intriguing, right? I keep going back and forth with Ismail, and we have email conversations, so I'd be interested to hear what he thinks about this. Again, James Mitchell signing off. I will be seeing you in this space for our next Oracle Outlook video reading together, and until then, I'm hoping that you have a great day, hoping that you're going to have a great week, and take care.